Okay, I'm going to talk about Damascus Steel, and this is above my pay grade. I'm not a metallurgist. I am just a knife collector, and I've learned this through my personal experience and reading. And I've also seen a trend. This is important. I've seen a trend since I started buying knives where, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing. I'm seeing a trend of a lot of young entrepreneurial knife makers that are blending old techniques and new techniques and new marketing and social media to sell their knives. I'm seeing some stuff in knives now that I'm questioning because I'm applying my older practical knowledge to understand what's being made and sold today. And it doesn't add up, and we're going to talk about that. One of the things the first thing is, let's talk Damascus. I remember the first time on Blade Forums or something like that, I was looking to buy my first Damascus knife, and they're 30 layers and 16 layers and 60 layers and what's it, 121 layers. You know, it's funny, they like, if it's 30 layers and you fold it in half, it's 60 layers, but the number seems to like grow by one or two. I'm not figuring that out. And then we have knives that are clad, just to introduce this because it's important. We have knives that are clad. We have knives that are solid steel. We have words for all of these different knives when you're talking about Japanese knives, and the words are thrown out there to be descriptive, but at the same time, all the descriptive words run together and it becomes confusing too. The first time I said which Damascus knife, to go back, which Damascus knife is better, the first thing I got is, it's not Damascus. Which steel is Damascus? Wootz steel is Damascus. So here was a guy, an old timer, that was putting me in my place, rightfully so. Damascus steel comes from Persian history. It was called Wootz steel, and it's a special recipe. I don't know if it's a secret recipe. I've read that there's some physical artifacts in people's collections. Whether they've been able to identify how Wootz steel Damascus was made, I don't know. But the term is still present in today. And in today's knife talk, it pretty much is meant to mean layers of different steels. In modern knife making, in order to get layers of different steel, you either stack them like paper, you know, weld them, press them together and make a solid ingot that looks like grains of wood, or you put them in a can somehow, weld it shut, weld the stuff. It's called pattern welded, and the way you melt it and then you forge it, it forces those layers together. All of those make the general term that we describe called Damascus steel, which is the pretty feather. I don't know that you can even see it in this knife. But to interject, in the new technology, you go online, you can buy plates of steel that look like layers, and it looks almost like you peel and stick it on the side of your knife and call it Damascus. That's where the old timers jumped on me, because there's so much of that the words get used interchangeably, and it has lost the effect, the importance, the history, the understanding of where modern Damascus came from, as it's being replaced with pattern welded and engineered knives. What the Damascus is for, when I asked that question, let me go back to that. I asked, which is better, 16 layer or 30 something or 60 something? I don't know. All I know in my thinking is, you start with, you got to make thinner layers if you're going to be more, otherwise how you going to see them? And when you forge it together, the layers get thinner. It should be more steel per cubic area. I don't know how you get more layers in there without making the space between them tighter in order to feed more layers into a cubic area or a linear area. That said, I don't know which is better, because the purpose of the layers is twofold. One is for aesthetics, for the prettiness of it, but it originally came from the clad knives, which were a center knife steel that is surrounded on either side by a protective coating, whether for corrosion and rust protection or for hardness. And that combination was supposed to give you the attributes of both a knife with better longevity, but with the fineness of that protected sharp core. Now that's understandable. You got a core and you got two outsides, but when you start stacking the Damascus layers on there, now I question, is it about strength or is it about beauty? Now I'm seeing, to sidestep, I'm seeing in today's market, Shun knives, big heavy hitter, has, I don't know if they're calling it I think they call it a dual core. A dual core is a Damascus or pattern welded, one steel, another layered, but it's not a clad knife. The clad knife has an explanation. The clad knife has that center core with the cladding to protect it. Now you have a dual core. You're putting an edge on it. Now, is that edge on one steel or the other? Is it crisscrossing? Is it waving? I'm trying to understand their logic other than marketing, selling a pretty knife, because if you look at it, it's a beautiful pattern welded steel knife. And I'm sure the hardness of the steel is adequate to be sharpened at 16 degrees, what Shun always sharpened all their knives, but it doesn't follow traditional thinking, and that's the point that I'm making. Now there's another one, that one's called dual core. There's another marketing the same steel, the same pattern welded, dark light, cool looking steel. This company calls it, one company calls it dual core, the other one calls it coreless. That's because they don't want to tell you which side is the core. My whole point is that you need to look what you're buying. And that's going to lead into another video that I'm going to do on shopping knives. But to try to finish this up with the wood steel, I never got an answer. I have all different cores, Damascus knives. I don't know that one is better than the other. I think that there is a real Damascus knife in there. In other words, there are some true old-timey knife masters, particularly Japanese, because of the years of tradition, the hundreds and thousands of years of passed down tradition that we lack in this young country of ours. We have the technology, but not necessarily that tradition, that mastery. So in order to get that true example of the old Damascus, true Damascus, I will show you some examples. We're going to move on. My throat's getting a little dry, and we'll move on to other Damascus and other steels in another video. Thanks.